Alright, so what is up YouTube? Today we are finally going to be reviewing the live action Cowboy Bebop show from Netflix. If you guys have been paying attention to the videos that I just released, yes, I finally did watch this show, finally. And I also think that the show got way more hate than it deserved because I actually had a good time watching it and I actually really enjoyed this show. And I think that it was actually really well done. And yeah, I'm gonna get into why that is in this video. So yeah, I guess I'll start with things that I liked about the show. I really liked how they adapted this show. For one, I really like how they adapted Cowboy Bebop. I think this show as an adaptation is really good, and that's one of the reasons why I feel like it did not deserve the amount of hate that it got, because even if people didn't like the show itself, I feel like as an adaptation you can't deny that this is really good. This is leagues and years above beyond Dragon Ball Evolution, The Last Airbender, or just any bad adaptation that you can think of. Not even anime to live action, but like manga to anime, you know, animated video game, you know, video game to movie, like any adaptation that you can really think of. I feel like this was a really good adaptation of Cowboy Bebop the anime, and I feel like it really deserves its flowers for that. Like, they did a really good job getting a lot of stuff right. Like, the chemistry between Faye and Jet and Spike is amazing. I love it. I really love watching these characters interact with each other, and I feel like that's something that a lot of directors in the industry today probably couldn't nail, to be honest. And I think they nailed it really well, honestly. I think the characters, the cast is like really fantastic in this live action show. Mustafa Shakir as Jet is just so perfect. Like, honestly, he is just so perfect as Jet. It's crazy. It's almost like he sounds like him. Like, their voice almost sounds exactly like the English voice actor at some times, and I'm just like, damn, like they literally sound the same. Like, it's crazy. And you know, I think John Cho did a great job as Spike Spiegel. Like, I really think he did a great job. You know, it sucks how people were complaining, oh, he's too old, and I'm like, bro, like, come on. Like, it bothers me that people were saying that because people said like, oh, well, you know, Spike is supposed to be young, like that's like part of his character is that he's super young. And I'm like, hello, like him being young never had anything to do with his character. Like, he's always been, you know, this kind of carefree guy, and, you know, put off his past and I guess make a persona for himself to be carefree and deal with his troubles in that way. And like, you know, he says like whatever happens happens, like that's kind of his thing, right? And like he does say that in the show. But yeah, it's like it's just crazy how people were like, oh, well, he's not young looking enough, so like John Cho, bad actor, bad job. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, John Cho, I think, killed it as Spike, bro. And I you know, honestly, I wasn't expecting him to do as good of a job as he did, but I think he nailed it, honestly. Like, he did a good job. Like, it's just crazy to me. Like, and Faye also was fantastic. Like, I think Daniela Pineda did a great job as Faye, and I really loved Faye's character like so much. Like, she's so like I just love how foul-mouthed she is, and she just like, fuck you. Like, it's so good. Like, I love it. Like, I love all the chemistry from all the actors, and it's so funny, and I love it. I honestly really do love it. And you know, part of the chemistry between all the characters being so good makes me actually really sad that the show did get canceled and that they can't do more with that, because I really would have loved to see more of that, you know. And I feel like, you know, the team actually having a good chemistry and like feeling like, you know, they actually earned them liking each other. Like, I feel like they earned their team, you know what I mean? Like, it feels like these characters came from nothing and now they feel like a family, or like they feel like a team, they feel like a squad at, you know, by the end, or at, well, not by the actual end, but you know what I mean? Like, they feel like an actual team, and I feel like they earned that, as opposed to like, you know, movies like Suicide Squad, where it's just like all these people get together and somehow they just all like each other, somehow they're all just a team at some point in the like, it really didn't feel like they earned that team, that trust, that like, you know, squad kind of feel. I've seen that in other movies and shows as well, where it's just like these group of heroes or whatever characters, they just get together and all of a sudden they just like each other. All of a sudden they're just a team, like out of nowhere, and it's like, it doesn't feel like they ever earned that trust or that bond. You know, they just get it. because it's, you know, I don't know, because it's just a superhero live action, you know, like, oh, we want to see these characters together so bad that we in our minds jump to conclusions or make our own conclusions that, like, yeah, they're supposed to be together, so, like, you know, we're okay with that. But, like, no, like, that's not it should always feel earned, you know. And I feel like they did that with this live action very well, like really, really well. And it just sucks that, you know, now that we have this really great chemistry, this really great dynamic with all these characters, we can't really see any more from that because the show got canceled, and that sucks. I really am sad about that. Also, I am gonna get into spoilers. The show's been out for a while, so I mean, I don't think anything is really all that crazy. Like, I mean, if you haven't seen it by now and you haven't seen the anime, I mean, it's kind of like, what is there really to spoil? But you know, obviously, definitely watch the anime and definitely watch this live action show because it's actually really good. But I mean, if you've seen the anime and haven't seen the show, like, there's not really much I can say that's spoiling it because it is very much so like the anime. But there is a few things, very few, but there is a few things that have changed that I will, like, you know, mention again when I get to those about, like, how they are spoilers. But yeah, anyway, so light spoilers, but, like, you know, yeah, they showed Ed at the end, right? And I'm not gonna talk too much about Ed right now, but I just wanted to kind of throw in the fact that, like, you know, they introduced Ed at the very end, and I just think it would have been really cool to, like, see season 2 with, like, Ed joining the group and, like, having the full, like, squad, the full team back together and, like, everything, and it would have been so cool, like, if they did a season 2. I really would have loved to see that. And I think, honestly, Tomorrow Studios did a great job with, like, you know, the cast and everything. I really do think seeing Jet and Spike and Faye on, you know, their adventures was actually really entertaining, and, you know, I enjoyed that part of it. And I think they did a really good job building that dynamic, and I think it would have been cool if they added Ed into the mix, and, like, you know, Ein the dog and stuff, and it would have been cool to see that, like, the full squad. But it is what it is. But yeah, that was one thing, you know, I think the cast is great, not just the main cast, but also, like, I loved the club owner woman. Oh my god, she was fantastic. I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but she, you know, she was the black lady. She was such a great character. Oh my god, she was so cool. And, like, I really, really loved her character, and I feel like the chemistry between her and Spike was just, it was amazing. But also, like, her and, like, with Julia, and like just, you know, this whole, like, this kind of essence, this, like, you know, all this stuff that has happened at this bar, like, everything, it just, this, you know, the club, like, it feels really, really great. Like, I really, really love a lot of the stuff that happened in this show, and, like, how they showed it, how they portrayed it. I think it was just great to watch. Like, and I think one of the things that, you know, I was kind of hoping for, you know, thinking about a Cowboy Bebop live action, right? One of the things I think about when I think of Cowboy Bebop is, you know, well, first off, the music is fire, as always. You know, Yoko Kanno, of course, she made the original soundtrack for the anime, and she did come back to make the soundtrack for this show, which was really cool. And yeah, the music was, like, so fire. Like, it's crazy because people hate on this show, and I'm like, bro, for the music alone, bro, this show was kind of gas, because, like, the music in this show goes dummy. Like, bro, like, it's crazy. Like, they'll be having conversations at the club, and I'm like, bro, y'all hear the background music though? Like, oh my god, bro, Yoko Kanno, just, my god, bro, she goes dummy with the soundtrack. But anyway, and also, just to speak on that a little bit, I will say that I was kind of like, or I kind of was hoping that she would have made something different for like the intro. Like, instead we just got the same intro, which, you know, it's fine, it's whatever. But I was like, bro, what if they, like, mixed it up a little bit or made something different? Like, I don't know. And some of the things, like, you could kind of tell they reused from the anime soundtrack, which, you know, it is what it is, right? Like, of course, I feel like if they didn't do it, like, people would say, oh my god, like, they would complain, right? So I feel like in that aspect, you know, they played it safe. And you know, but it's ironic because people still said that it wasn't enough like the anime, which makes no sense. But anyway, yeah, I was kind of hoping for a few more new things music wise, and, like, just in general, like, with the anime and the story wise. Like, I wanted a little bit more new stuff, new material. But I can also understand why they didn't do that, because even though they did so much like the anime, people still complained and said it wasn't enough like the anime. So I can't even blame them for, you know, trying to stick to a lot of the anime, like, music choices and story choices and everything. So It is what it is. But yeah, one of the things that I always think of when I think of Cowboy Bebop is the shots. The shots in the anime are gorgeous, beautiful. I always love, you know, the classic neo-noir like feel, and I feel like Cowboy Bebop nails that with, you know, its shots, it's really beautiful looking frames, and of course the art style and animation is just top notch, right? And the music just does nothing but complement it, right? I was honestly hoping that if they made a live action adaptation of Cowboy Bebop, that they would kind of try at least to make the shots look pretty, you know, to have really beautiful looking frames, because I feel like that's what I think of when I think of Cowboy Bebop. You know, of course, aside from like the other obvious things that make Cowboy Bebop so great, action, animation, and stuff, but like I do think of like the jazzy moments and like, you know, just kind of the nice, silent, like smooth vibes when I think of Cowboy Bebop sometimes, and I feel like they did a good job of capturing that. Like I feel like there are a lot of times in this show where the shots are really good, like actually really good, and that's the thing, like me being a filmmaker, being a film graduate, you know, and my, like me being that, I have, you know, kind of more of an understanding and more of a sense of, you know, like I've seen a lot of this stuff before, you know what I mean? I think that a lot of the shots in this show were fire, right? And I'm not just, you know, an average guy. Like I've been working in the industry for a minute now. I've been editing for a lot of people, you know, editing different things, commercials, stuff here and there. And, you know, I've been handed a lot of, like, I'm so used to seeing a lot of different kinds of shots and stuff. And, you know, me watching this show, I think that a lot of the shots were fire. And I was not expecting them to be as fire as like something that, you know, maybe like, I don't know, I could make, or something that, you know, could be made with like stupid high budget, you know what I mean? Like if they really wanted to go all out with like the shots. But honestly, some of the shots in this show were absolutely fire. And, you know, again, and that's me saying that. That's not any average Joe Schmo, you know what I mean? So, you know, off rip, the average guy can at the very least be like, yo, this looks good. Like the shots look good. Like there's good stuff here, you know, like camera work, like they went crazy with the shots and camera work on this show. Like it's crazy. And I'm like, I'm sitting here watching this like, what? Like, how do people hate this? Like, are you kidding me? Like, are we watching the same show? Because like the combination of the music, the shots, some of the action, I'm just like, bro, people are stupid saying that this is bad. Like, are you kidding me, bro? Like, it was actually insane. I was watching it, I'm just like, dude, this is actually really good. Like that fight scene where Spike enters like that interconnecting club and he just like murders everyone, bro, that scene went dummy, bro. The camera work was going crazy with the I don't understand how people like hate on this show. Like it's crazy. Like they actually went in on some of the camera, on some of the scenes. Like I'm like, bro, like yo, like it's crazy. It's crazy. Like, oh my god. Like obviously, you know, there's certain things that like, you know, animation is just not gonna look, you know, in film, right? Like it's just not gonna look well in film. With like when you see like an animated fight, and like, you know, I feel like a lot of times when you are like, oh, that looks so good, like part of you is thinking like what looks really good is the animation, or like seeing this action happen in animation. But a lot of times when you translate that to live action, it's like, well, the charm, the essence, the beauty of it has been, you know, kind of erased, because this is just something that happens in live action. Like we've seen this happen so many times, so it's no longer like charming, it's no longer like wow, you know what I mean? But I feel like they handled it so well, because they didn't just like, oh yeah, like let's put this in live action like as a fight scene. They used things that are good and are really visually pleasing to look at in live action currently, and you know, they made these fight scenes for live action. It's really well done. Like it's crazy that I remember hearing all these complaints saying like, oh, the action is terrible, like the shots were muddy and all this stuff, and I'm like, after watching it, I'm like legitimately like so confused and so like, wow, I guess no one literally watched the show, because y'all are just so fucking stupid saying all this shit that just isn't true. It's just not true. Like it's just crazy to me. Like I remember reading articles saying like, oh yeah, the poor camera work, and I thought like, I honestly thought that that was gonna be the case, and then I watched it and I'm like, hello, like, did y'all watch the same show? Like, it's actually insane. It's actually insane. Like, oh my god, like, it's just it's crazy to me. It's actually crazy to me. And like, I legitimately feel like people didn't even watch the show. I really do feel like people didn't watch this show and they just hated on it without even like it's wow, it's crazy. But yeah, other things that I really liked, there were a few changes that they made that, you know, were fine. Like, they didn't really bother me. I think you know, Jet having a daughter was a change that, like, you know, it was fine. I think it was actually probably a good change because it gave his character a little bit more, like, made him a little bit more down to earth, kind of gave him more of like a human side, and I think that that was kind of cool. And you know, his whole like thing with his ex-wife and like Chalmers, like, I thought that was kind of you know, and then there's that whole episode where they go into Jet's backstory, and that was like super cool because they made it like super neo-noir, sepia tone, and like it was so cool. Like, I loved that whole thing. You know, they made it very like classic, like gangster, like noir. Like, it was just really cool. I really loved that. And honestly, Jet's character was just done so well. Like, it's just crazy. And also, bro, the humor in this show is actually genuinely funny. Like, I laughed a lot of times, and I was like not expecting that. You know, I was expecting them to have like corny kind of humor, but like, honestly, the humor in this show is really good. I think honestly a lot of the writing in this show is really good. Like, there was that one part where Jet is like checking the engine, and then he sees Faye and, you know, the girl, and he's like, what the fuck? Like, dude, that shit was hella funny, bro. Like, I was actually dying. And like, fucking the one part where like you see Vicious and Spike, and they're talking about like shaving their balls like before they're about to go on a mission to like murder someone. Like, I thought that was like really cool, and I feel like it's something that, you know, we wouldn't really get in the anime, but we got here. And I think that it's something that it's kind of cool, like, to see that, you know, something that we wouldn't normally get. And I don't know, I really thought that that was really cool and really funny. And yeah, I think that a lot of the humor actually works in this show, and it's great. I love it. I really love this show, like, honestly. But, you know, talk a little bit about the things that I loved, but let's talk about the things that I didn't love. So, you know, we'll get the elephant out of the room. Vicious. Okay, Vicious is not Vicious from the anime. And in that sense, yeah, he's not nearly as cool as he was in the anime. I think Vicious in the anime is really fucking cool, and it's just like, he's so terrifying, you know, like, he's vicious. Like, it's crazy. Like, he just has this aura to him that's just insane. And they made Vicious and Julia have like a romance in the live action show, which like I didn't really know how to feel about, because I was like trying to remember. I was like, wait, I don't think that happened in the anime. But yeah, it didn't. And you know, they changed Vicious quite a bit. But I will say, the changes that they made to him, I can understand why they did it. And to be honest, it's not like, you know, even though they made him way less cooler than he was in the anime, his changes didn't deal break the show for me. Like, it wasn't a deal breaker, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, Vicious is different, definitely, and he's definitely not as cool. He's kind of whiny, and I don't like that, to be honest. But like, it's not like, oh, they changed Vicious, show is bad, 0 out of 10, like, you know, on some IGN. Like, no, like, obviously, like, even though they did change Vicious, he still like works as a villain. He still works as like a bad guy for the story, as an antagonist. And like, I feel like character still works for me. It's not like something where it's like, oh, this just doesn't work at all, and then therefore the show is like bad, or like the story doesn't make any sense, or the story isn't good because like, as a villain he doesn't work. Like, it's not that, like, that's not the case. He works as a villain, his character works as a story, like, everything works. It's just not as cool as the anime, but that's fine, you know? Like, I feel like, especially because Vicious is really cool in the anime, but for the filmmakers to translate that into live action, I do think it would have been much harder to do. And I think that they probably reached a point where they were like, you know, we can try this, but like, let's face it, this isn't going to help the story be easier to consume, and it's also, we're never gonna please everyone anyway, so let's just make Vicious a character that is a bit different, but also like kind of helps the plot, you know, become easier to consume, and just makes more sense, right? Because Vicious is like, he doesn't really talk a lot in the anime. So like having those kind of characters where they don't really show much, they don't really talk much, you know, as an anime viewer and like as a story lover, like that's cool, right? I'm really interested in those characters, and I think Vicious was so cool in the anime. But I can understand why they wouldn't want to like try to portray him the exact same way in live action, because I feel like the story they were going for with this show, they needed Vicious to be what he is in the live action show. And honestly, it's not bad. Like it definitely works. It's just, like I said, not as cool as the anime, but in this show, right, like you see Vicious become vicious, right? Like you see how he's kind of just this sick fuck from the beginning, and he's, you know, the syndicate child, and like he's, you know, he kind of just loses it at one point and becomes what he is, right? And you kind of see him just go through all of that, and then, you know, he kind of just ends up being like whiny and having these father problems and stuff, and it just, his story isn't nearly as interesting. It's kind of generic in a way, but at the same time it works. Like it makes sense, you know, we get who he is. Whereas I feel like if they try to go for something like a little more cryptic and, you know, whatever, like I feel like people would have then complained, oh, this doesn't make sense, you know, whatever. And I don't think they had the time, resources, and like understanding to really, like as a team, to really get Vicious right. Like I could see probably they had different opinions amongst how they want to portray Vicious, so they probably just went with the safest thing. And I feel like I said, yeah, I think Vicious is much cooler in the anime, but I feel like for someone who's never seen the anime, I think Vicious would be fine. Like I think, you know, it wouldn't be like a, you know, like I just feel like it's not like a huge deal. Like Vicious still works. Vicious is still, you know, a fucked up crazy villain. Like he still works as a character in the story. It's just he's not nearly as cool as the Vicious in the anime. But that's fine. Like that's not a deal breaker for me, and I don't think it should be a deal breaker for anyone. Like I feel like if you're saying, oh, Cowboy Bebop is a 0 out of 10 because they changed Vicious, like bro, come on, you're really gonna ignore everything else they did right? Like hello, like the entire rest of the cast is fucking amazing, fucking brilliant, except Vicious. Like come on, bro. Like that's cap. But yeah, they changed Vicious, and I'm not the biggest fan of what they did with Vicious, but it is what it is. So this is where I was gonna mention the spoilers, because it's like a story change. But yeah, at the very end, like pretty much what Julia does at the very end of the story, she like pushes Spike from the you know, the clock tower and you know, kills him, I guess. Well, not actually kills him, but you know what I mean. Like she puts an end to Spike basically, and she also like puts Vicious like in this kind of torture room. And yo, I will say Julia, like she, like what she does at the end with Vicious is badass. Like she's such a badass bitch, bro. Like it was crazy, like when she put him, and then she like was playing roulette with him, like with the gun, and then, you know, she pulled the trigger and it didn't go off, you know, the bullet wasn't there, but then she's like, oh, we'll try again next time. Like bro, like I was like, oh, like she a bad bitch. Like that was crazy. Like oh, like it was so cool to me. But you know, and especially because like she felt like or she was kind of like being tortured by Vicious for like that whole time. So like her to see her do that to him, it was like, yo, like this is fire, right? But I will say, I don't like how Julia at the end kind of just changed her character out of nowhere. Like I feel like they went for her being like, oh, now she wants to take control of the syndicate, and I feel like that's a change that I'm okay with. Like I don't mind her getting to that or becoming that, being that character. I just feel like they didn't build up or show enough of her wanting to be that, or like power hungry enough. Like they didn't show enough of her being power hungry and actually having this ideology of wanting to take over the syndicate. Like it just kind of comes out of nowhere at the very end, and I feel like, yeah, they should have built that up more. They should have showed more of her, you know, potentially like becoming that. And I think if they would have done that, I would have been absolutely fine with that ending. But yeah, it just kind of feels like they ended it like that because they didn't want it to be exactly like the anime. And at first, like when that was happening, like when she was like, oh, talking to Spike, like, oh, you're just a dream I have to wake up from. Like I thought like they were gonna pull some shit like, oh, that's actually Vicious with like the technology where she changed with him or something. I was like, oh shit, like that's not actually her. But then like it was, and I was like, I remember thinking like, wait, she feels different. Like this feels kind of not like it was like it's her. Like it just feels kind of written in in there. So yeah, I think they just kind of put that in to like make it so that it's not the exact same ending of the anime, because otherwise that episode where, you know, Spike and Vicious have their final showdown in like that blue like lit church and everything, like that's, it legitimately is the anime, except for like that little ending at the end. So, which again also blows my mind how people say it's not the anime, but like it literally is so much like the anime. But anyway, so that was like another thing that I didn't really like as much, but again, was not a deal breaker for me. Like, yeah, it feels a little weird, but you know, it's not like I'm gonna like be like, oh yeah, the show was garbage because of that one change. Like, no, obviously not. And yeah, man, like I loved Julia's character. Like I loved how, you know, they showed her like kind of singing at the bar. I was like, yo, like this is fire. Like I loved how they had like classic like jazzy like singer and like at the club, and like it was just nice, man. It was nice. The song was nice. Like it was nice, bro. I loved it. I loved the ending, how everything kind of just feels fucked up for everyone. And you know, you just see Spike with a cigarette, and it just, I love it, bro. I love it. It just feels like Cowboy Bebop. Like this is it. Like this, I can't believe this show got so much hate, and oh man, it sucks. Like I really loved so much about it, and I wasn't even expecting to. Like that's the crazy part. I was literally expecting this to be kind of mid, but wow, like it was actually really good. Like I actually really enjoyed this show, and actually, I'm kind of excited now for One Piece, because you know, same makers, and I think they're probably, if you know, they did a great job with this, I really think they're gonna do a great job with One Piece as well, but not sure if it's gonna get the support that, you know, it needs. But that's a different video. I just wanted to kind of throw that in there because, you know, we are getting the One Piece live action pretty soon, and you know, it's gonna be done by the same people. So yeah man, I really love the show, and I think that if you haven't seen it and you've been staying away from it because of, you know, people's opinions on the internet, fuck them, watch this shit. I think it's actually really good, and even if you don't think it's as good as like what I thought, like I think you will definitely enjoy it, especially if you're a fan of the anime, or if you're not. I mean, I think it's just a good show, honestly. But yeah, I mean, like I said, like there's obviously some parts of the show that I think aren't as great either. Like I do love a lot of parts, but there are certain parts I think where they focus on Vicious's story that aren't as entertaining, like when he's, you know, talking with Mao and stuff and plotting this like overthrow like for the syndicate. It's not that interesting. Vicious's story just really isn't as interesting, but it makes sense, I guess. But yeah, everything else was like just so well done. It's just crazy. I don't know, I really love the show, man. I think it was really enjoyable to watch. I think it doesn't deserve the hate that it got, but you know, it is what it is. Oh yeah, also, I'm calling it now. I'm calling it right now. 5 years from now, maybe 10, maybe somewhere in between, people are going to absolutely love the fuck out of this show. People are gonna say, this show was so underrated, like blah, 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 blah. Like all that hatred that people are saying now, I guarantee you, I promise you, 100%. Years from now, people are gonna say they never hated this show. They're gonna say, oh, like this show was always underrated, blah, 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 because it is underrated. Like it's actually really good. And like, I can't believe how people just ignored that. But like, I promise you, like it's all because of just the hate train. Like that, it's just a bandwagon hate train. I promise you, there's literally nothing else to it. And once all that dies down, people are gonna say this was underrated, this was actually really good, and they're gonna pretend like they're just gonna switch up. Like they're just gonna switch up so fast, pretend like they never hated the show. And you know, yeah, I promise you that. I promise you, 10 years from now, I'm calling it. They're gonna switch up. Everyone's gonna say this was actually really good, or look back on it and be like, wow, this is actually really good. Like I promise you that. I promise you that 100%. I'm gonna be here to be like, yo, why y'all switching up? Why y'all ain't just had your own fucking opinions from the fucking beginning? So I guess I'll be here to say, you know, I had my opinion and that never changed, and you know, I was always a real one. But yeah, you know, much like with, you know, anime live action in general, people will just switch up, and you know, they're always gonna keep trying to make it. So yeah, one last thing I guess before I end my review, I will, I guess, comment on Ed at the end. So I will say, I don't think the shots of Ed look too flattering, but I don't think the actress did a bad job by any means. I just think that the shots that they were going for, you could kind of see what they were going for with the really wide lens, and like the actress kind of looking into the lens and stuff, like she's looking at Spike, but Spike is passed out because he's drunk and stuff. So like they wanted that, you know, nice wide ass lens. I get it. I get what they were going for, but I feel like it doesn't really make her look too flattering, which is unfortunate. It doesn't make the costume that she's wearing look too flattering, which I think is kind of the issue. But I feel like she didn't do a bad job. And I think honestly, Ed's goofiness and zaniness and like, you know, super hyperactive exaggerativeness is kind of hard to even imagine being done in live action. And once I just heard her speak, I think she was doing a good job. I just think the costume, and it's not even the costume itself, I just think the shots don't make the costume she's wearing look too flattering. One of my viewers said like it looks too college anime club-esque, which I can see, but I think it really was due to the shots. And I think the you know, the film language wasn't there. I think instead of having her look into like, you know, the wide lens, I think she should have been looking from like upside down, or I think she should have been like not too close. I think she should have been like, honestly, maybe she shouldn't have even been fully like revealed. Like maybe they should have just kind of had her voice, you know, maybe they shouldn't have shown her, but just had her voice there or whatever. Or maybe just not up close, maybe don't show any close-ups of her. I think the camera work really kind of ruined the scene, but I don't think the actual actress or the acting itself was bad. I think that was done fine. And I think even the costume doesn't look bad. I think just the angles of the camera don't make it look good, and it was showing like all the bad sides of it, in my opinion. I think if I was like to direct that scene, I would have done it, you know, a little bit differently, or like at the very least, I think when you saw kind of like how, you know, she looked close up, I think I would have just probably taken that part out, to be honest. But I don't think it was that bad. And I don't think like if we saw like her portray Ed in the season 2, I think it would have been fine. I think honestly people would have definitely liked to see her as Ed, or like she would have done a great job as Ed. I think it's just that and you know, like that was like what, 20 seconds of Ed. Like it's not like you can be like, oh, she's a terrible Ed because of 20 seconds that we see her, barely, you know what I mean? But I think honestly she would have done a great job as Ed if they had more of her in season 2, but I just think that particular camera work and angle for when she's like talking into that really wide lens, I think that just wasn't the best way to handle that scene. So yeah, but anyways, yeah, that's pretty much all I have for this one. Trying to make this video not too long, but there was a lot I really wanted to talk about, and I feel like I needed to talk about. So yeah, let me know what you guys think if you've seen the show for yourself in the comments below. Leave a like on the video, subscribe if you haven't already, that helps me out a ton. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see y'all in the next video.